All right. Hello, everyone. Good day to you, and welcome to episode 3. I am actually doing this because I was having a conversation with my study group in church a few days ago, and I had to give a reason why I haven't been uploading, why I haven't been pushing out more episodes. And one of the reasons I gave was that I found out that I wasn't as articulate with my thoughts, and they blasted me. So this is me I want to just sit and just say everything that's on my mind concerning the concept that I'll be talking about today. All right. So I won't be editing as much. All right. So I'll just go on and just speak on most of it. In the last episode 2, we took a look at the concept of philosophy, right? We spoke about how every single person, everybody, including yourself, how we are bound to philosophy, right? Everybody lives by a particular philosophy or the other. Everybody has a particular set of principles that they live by. We don't have a choice. It's just the way life is. It's just the way that our minds work. And I know that I quoted something by Ayn Rand, right? So the quotes in that episode, the quote I used to start that episode was actually by Ayn Rand, and it was pretty accurate. Everybody is just limited and bound to a particular philosophy, especially when they say that they don't live by any philosophy. In fact, they might not even know that the principles by which they live is called philosophy, but nonetheless, they still do live by philosophy. And the reason why we went through all of that is because it is important for you to know a thing, especially when that particular thing literally drives the entirety of your life, right? So it's better to know that thing, to be aware of it, instead of just going on living your life in oblivion, right? So that was one of the reasons why we went through that episode and why we spoke about all of that in that episode. Now, since that fact has been brought to light, the next thing would be to provide a means by which we are able to move out of there. For some of us, it might be that episode provided information where we come to realize that there might be a need for us to change our philosophy. Maybe you came to realize that the philosophy that you live by isn't something that you want to live by. Maybe there are a set of principles that you might be intellectually against, right? You might have been living it out, in your actions and your day-to-day, but if you are to properly sit down and, talk to other people about it, you might actually be against all of those principles and you would want to stop it, right? So today's episode should be able to, provide you with resources needed to be able to snap out of it and, begin to fraction something else, another route for you to go on living your life. But in another case, if the situation for you is that you are in the right place intellectually, right, and instead you are trying to fend off all attacks against your position, against the particular philosophy in which you are living by, the particular principles by which you live, right? If your aim is to be better grounded in your philosophy, then this episode also, the principles and the concepts that we'll be talking about in this episode should be able to help you better ground yourself. Today's episode is about objectivity. Objectivity is important for everyone who is trying to find clarity in the intellectual aspect of their life, right? And what exactly is objectivity? Objectivity is the ability of a person to perceive and to interpret information without being influenced by their personal emotions, their personal biases, or even other people's biases or preconceived notions. Objectivity has to do with the ability to see things as they truly are, your ability to see a thing the way it actually is, rather than through the lens of your desires or your fears or the expectations that you had prior. Objectivity involves a disciplined approach to understanding reality. It involves a disciplined approach to seeing, to perceiving reality. It's a way of life whereby we strive to see things just as they are, rather than the way that we wish for them to be. In fact, we can even go on to say that being objective means that we are able to consistently ask the question, what do the evidences say? What exactly are the evidences saying? And what are the evidences saying, independent of anyone's feelings, independent of anyone's biases? That exactly is objectivity. And looking from the last episode and where we're coming from, this might be the next best step when you are trying to figure out your path intellectually, when you're trying to figure out a better philosophical stand to take, or when you're trying to better ground yourself philosophically. Because just like I mentioned the last time, I took some time to look at the philosophies that some of us might be living by, right? Philosophies of David Hume, John Locke, some of these other guys I mentioned in the last episode, right? The same way that those people opine certain things, they laid certain concepts down, and the rest of the world just picked it up and ran with it. And most of those things that they laid down, most of the theories that they laid down that people live by even till today might not exactly be true, right? It's the same way that even today we are living according to certain fallacies that have been repeated so many times that they have become a cloud over the way we see reality. And so right now we're not able to see reality as it is. We perceive reality through the lens of these things. We're not able to properly see things the way that they are, right? So there are certain fallacies that are just part of the way we think, and we think that these things are true, meanwhile they are not. If there are a lot of fallacies are all around us, but then just to list a few, if we should take, for example, the popular um um theory. I don't know if we should call it a theory, but let's just call it a fallacy, where we say that humans only use 10% of our brains, right? So that has been repeated so many times, even in schools. I think the first place I heard this was in school. Like, humans only use 10% of our brains. And that is funny, because when you actually take some time to go research, you come to find that it's not as true. You know, Brain scans show that all through the day, we use different parts of our brains, right, at different times in the day. So nearly all areas of our brain, nearly all parts of our brain are being utilized over the course of a day. And there's another fallacy that's that humans have five senses. But that also is not true, because in reality, humans have many senses. We have more senses than that, and our senses include that of balance, that of proprioception. I think that's what it's called, proprioception. It has to do with our body awareness. right? And many other um, forms of perception, many other ways that we're able to sense the outside world through our brain, right? Or I mean, there are just so many fallacies that we've come to believe as true, and the only way that we can come out of believing those things is through objectivity, is by objectively scrutinizing these things. So important, because it's able to allow us to hold our beliefs, the things that we hold dear, the beliefs that we hold dear to our heart. It allows us to hold our beliefs to the lights and to properly and critically evaluate our beliefs. It helps us to discard those beliefs that no longer serve us. And a lack of objectivity, especially in the long run, creates a distortion in how we experience the world. You know, you see certain people, you hear them talk, you see the way they live, and you are just really shocked. Like, how exactly did you get here? How is it that you don't see the world the way that other people see it? How is it that you see and you live this way? Well, it might be because of objectivity. It might be because they might just have a need to just sit down and take the things that they believe one by one and just properly look at them and scrutinize those beliefs objectively. And just to make my point, I would like you to take this analogy, if I can call it that. So picture this: there are two people, right? A young lady and a young man. Let's call them John and Elizabeth, right? So John and Elizabeth are walking down the road, and all of a sudden it begins to rain. While it's raining, John looks at the sky and he begins to curse the rain. But then Elizabeth begins to jump in the puddle and she's just really excited. Now, in that scenario, objectively, it is rain and there's nothing that they could do about it. There's nothing more, there's nothing less about the situation. The rain will continue to come down regardless of how they feel about it. And the rain would continue to rain down even if they were not there to experience it, right? So that particular situation, that particular scenario exists independently of their perception. Whether they are there to experience it or not, it would continue to rain. Like, it is a fact that it is raining. But then John and Elizabeth have their own personal experience of this objective reality. And we come to see things like this play out in our world today. Certain things are happening, but you see people get so offended and you see it affects them so much. And you see the way that they respond to certain situations. And, it's just funny to see. It's funny to watch people respond to certain things. In a world like ours today, in which there's just this weird but really strong encouragement to let people drive their lives through their emotions, drive their decision making. Some of the most important decisions they will need to make to just spearhead it with just their emotions. So much so that if we actually want to think about objectivity is almost elusive, because when you're on social media, you see the way people talk, you see the way people live, you see the way people react to things, and then you decide to bring yourself out of all of that mess and all of that puddle. You then attempt to look at things a little more objective. It's almost elusive. It's almost impossible. And to be honest, it can be really hard to want to grab yourself out of the emotionally charged society that we live in and to begin to seek objectivity in our decisions. And in fact, if I were to be really honest with you, objectivity is really, really complicated. The reason why I say that is because the exact nature of reality is not exactly known. I mean, when we talk about consciousness, our conscious experiences, scientists have not been able to find the exact source of where conscious experiences come from. We don't understand it. We don't even understand what consciousness is. There are many theories, there are many explanations that have been given concerning this, but nothing exactly has been satisfactory. Nothing exactly has hit the core of the answer that is needed. In fact, we can even argue that the logical scientific framework that we have today, we can say that there are almost no facts, because every laid down fact can be argued against. And I'm talking about science as we have it today. You can literally have a professor arguing about something that had been established for the past 150 years or throughout the whole of history. One scientist comes up and he begins to argue against it, and you find a lot more, just rising and also backing up this new claim that has been raised, because the scientific method as we have it works with falsification. It's not like math or symbolic logic that a particular statement can be definitely true or definitely false. A scientific fact is simply something that has been shown repeatedly and has yet to be falsified. Because science in itself is a collective consciousness. We can describe it as a collective consciousness. Science itself, we can describe it as being constructed from the result of repeated tests over time. And I know that some people might argue against it, but if you've done your research, you'll discover that while science aims to understand and explain natural phenomena, it doesn't claim to determine the ultimate nature of reality. But actually, what science does is that it works through consilience, through consistent, repeated tests to arrive at a particular viewpoint. And even that viewpoint is peer reviewed. So not just one person is doing the finding, but multiple people have done their research. Multiple people have run the tests and they found that it's consistent. Basically, I know this episode has been a lot so far. And now, we might be asking, like, what exactly are we supposed to do with all of this information now, Alex? Like, we're on our own. You brought the whole thing about objectivity to us. You sold it to us and everything, but now you are telling us that objectivity is not the way, that objectivity is even almost not attainable. Well, humans have found themselves in this particular space that we're in, and sometimes the answer that some people would want to raise is to just be nihilistic about it. Nihilism now, that's everything is meaningless mindset and everybody's going to die. That's aesthetics that the average teenager who just stumbled on one of Nietzsche's book takes upon himself. It becomes his mantra for the next couple of months. But then nihilism is not where we will be going to. Rather, since we started with objectivity, I came to realize that the answer is actually in subjectivity. So we began in objectivity, but when I was doing all of my research, when I was doing all of the reading up and writing for this episode, I got to find that the answer to the problem of absolute objectivity is in subjectivity. And subjectivity is what we'll be talking about in the next episode. So I guess this is sort of like a cliffhanger, right? I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something. If you did learn something, kindly leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining in.